Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this session for Forefront 2021 for the Entrepreneurial Mindset for School Leaders. My name is Jesse Roberts. I'm the CEO for Unbound 360. I am thrilled today to introduce Shannon Roberts, who is a professional implementer for Ethos Consulting. Her company does professional implementation for the EOS, or Entrepreneur's Operating System, in countries all over the East Coast. I hope that you will find this session to be entertaining, and I'm sure you will, because EOS is a fantastic system, and we're really excited about Shannon's presentation. So without further ado, I will let her take off. If you have any questions, please throw them in the chat window, and I will be moderating those for her. But again, without further ado, Shannon, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Can I just confirm everyone can see my screen? Jesse? Okay, so I'm going to spend some time this afternoon talking about EOS, short for the Entrepreneurial Operating System. And the idea is we're going to try to help you get a grip on your people. EOS focuses on 6 key components. People is one of them, but that is the one I chose to speak with you all about today. So very brief agenda, which is we're going to talk about getting real and being very honest about the struggles in organizations, how to keep it simple, and how to get some results. So getting real. So I'm going to give you a very brief history of EOS. It was written, there's a book called Traction, written by a guy named Gino Wickman. Gino found that working with organizations, he was able to distill all of the problems in an organization down to about 6 key components, and we'll talk a little bit about that. He then started this kind of revolution, and now over almost 11,000 organizations are running their businesses and their nonprofits on the Entrepreneurial Operating System. And EOS's goal is to help organizations, leadership teams achieve 3 things, which is vision, which is where are you going and how are you going to get there? Traction, which is injecting real discipline and accountability into your organization, and healthy, meaning creating an open, honest environment where leadership teams can work together for the greater good of their company and to solve problems as they arise. So a few discoveries through EOS, my personal ones, because I've used the system personally before I became a professional implementer, is EOS is a journey. So it isn't something you snap your fingers and do, it's a process. I took an organizational checkup a couple of years ago for my company and gave myself a 53. That was pretty disheartening. But inside of a year, I was giving us an 86. So I was very happy with the progress that we made. I know that the team that worked for me was really happy, and it really helped us generate a culture of accountability and teamwork. So let's talk about getting real. There's a lot of frustrations when you're trying to manage people. So sometimes it feels like things are out of control. The people are, you've got a tiger by the tail. Sometimes people are just more difficult to work with than the others, and you're trying to figure out how to crack that nut. A lot of times people that are running organizations feel like they're hitting the ceiling, like we just can't get over this next hump. We just can't get past this problem. We just solved this problem 6 months ago and it's back. So we're going to talk about that concept a little bit. And then there's the just general, like nothing's working. Everything we're trying is not working. And so the good news is that EOS can help companies with those frustrations. And our goal is to always keep it simple. Less is more is one of our major tenets. So we're going to talk about this EOS model with your school at the center. And today we're going to talk about the people component. So I'm going to just do a quick pass around the model so you see the other ones. Vision component, like I said, where you're going and how are you going to get there. You can't achieve a great vision without the right people. When we talk about EOS, this is not a cookie cutter approach. So what's right people for one school might not be right people for another school, and it's about figuring out who are the right people for your organization. Then we dive into a data component. This is about running your organization on a couple of key facts and figures. We like to say 5 to 15 numbers. So then I call that the top line stuff. So when you get all of those 3 things humming, that's when issues just kind of bubble to the surface, but you get really good at solving them. Then we talk about process. So is there a hiring process? Every organization has a couple of core processes. So maybe it's hiring, it's training, there's an accounting process, maybe there's a customer service process. We're going to be talking about documenting those at an 80-20 very high level. And then there is no coincidence that traction is at the bottom from your vision component, because vision without traction is hallucination, which is Gino's famous quote. And I find that to be very true. So this is a free tool that's available on eosworldwide.com, and I'll have more information about that at the end. But in the early days, it was just a piece of paper drafted in Word, where he calls this the VTO. It's called the Vision Traction Organizer, and it asks 8 questions. So it's, what are your core values? What's your core focus? What's your 10-year target? Your marketing strategy? Your 3-year picture? After you have that 3-year picture and it's crystallized, then it makes 1-year planning a heck of a lot easier. So what's your 1-year plan? Rocks are like 90-day business priorities, and then what's your issues list? So we go through a process of completing this document and revising and updating. So after we do that, that's how we launch into this model. And there's a thing called an organizational checkup. Again, it's a free tool that I'll tell you how to get to. This is the thing that I referenced that I gave us a 53. The goal is to get organizations to 80%. Now, wouldn't 100% be ideal? Sure, but that's utopia. We live in the real world. And if you get to 80%, you really have an organization that's very, very well run. And at this point, you're going to find that it's easier to manage, it's more scalable, and it's more fun. So unfortunately, a lot of people, when they first complete their organizational checkup, are at the 20% mark. And that's nothing to be ashamed of, because again, it does say most. The idea is that EOS works great for people who are more interested in progress than they are in the status quo. So if you're interested in growth, EOS is a great way to start. So let's talk about hitting that ceiling and how organizations really grow. So a lot of people think that, organizations just start and then they just have this acceleration, but it's more like you have a little bit of evolution, and then there's some revolution. And that could be, I like to use COVID as a really good example right now. So if COVID affected your organization, as it affected, millions of organizations, you might have had to come up with different processes to handle your students. You might have had to come up with different processes to handle billing. There, like a lot of different things might have had to change to keep the business running, the business part of your organization running. When you figure all those things out, you get to enjoy some more evolution. And then inevitably, you hit the ceiling again. You got to figure a bunch of stuff out. How are we going to do this better? How are we going to do it differently? And then you get to continue to grow. Now, organizations that do not survive these stages of revolution do one of 2 things. They can either flatline, which is what I said, like your growth just stagnates for whatever reason. And unfortunately, I think as we know in the last year, a lot of organizations failed who were not able to adapt and overcome that period of revolution that we've been experiencing. So EOS talks about 5 leadership abilities to help you break through hitting the ceiling. And I'm not going to focus on 5. We don't have that much time today, but I'm going to talk about simplify, because by simplifying, you can really get a lot more accomplished. So if you think about an organization when there was only 2 people, there were 2 lines of communication. Okay, but when you add a 3rd person, there's been a 50% increase in people, but a 200 increase in communication complexity. Let's do that with 4 people. 100% increase in people, a 500% increase in complexity. And what happens for leaders who've been in your organization for a long time, this has all gone on around you. So you don't notice how complex things are, because it just grew into that, as opposed to someone who might be coming in new from the organization thinking, wow, there's a lot going on here. So what do we do with that? Well, we can also look at structure. So what's the structure for your organization? We're going to encourage you to make things very simple, look at your structure, and take a big step back when you're looking at your people. We talk about crystallizing the roles of that organization, and then the tool we use for this is called the accountability chart. Also available on the website for free, but the accountability chart isn't an org chart. It reduces complexity of your organization. So what makes an accountability chart as opposed to an org chart. Important, only one person can be accountable for each major function of an organization. So if two people are responsible for making sure invoices go out, who's really responsible? So they think very clearly. One person is accountable for major functions of your organization. Now, sometimes if you're in a smaller organization, one person might be responsible for 2 or 3 major functions, but that's different than 2 people being responsible for 1. So let's do this structure first, people second exercise. So when we talk about right people, we talk about 2 things, which is right people, right seats. So how do we get to right seats? So we create a function, and in your mind, it could be operations, it could be marketing, it could be sales, it could be finance. But then you define the roles in that function. Top line, simplify, high level. This isn't a detailed job description. Okay, these are like, what are the 5 most important things that this job function does? And then you plug the name into the seat. After you decide what are the 5 most important things this function does. We get away from titles. This isn't the VP of marketing. This is the marketing function. So by way of example, if we were doing marketing and sales, EOS loves abbreviations. So LMA stands for lead, manage, and hold people accountable. So in a lot of organizations, if you have direct reports, your very first function is LMA. You have to lead, manage, and hold people accountable. That's part of your job. So obviously somebody in the marketing department is responsible for marketing. Maybe they have some sales goals they're responsible for. Maybe they actually do the selling. They don't just manage people who do it, but they actually have to do some of the selling themselves. And maybe there's some account management. So when the sale comes through, they have to pass it on to the next stage in the operational chain. So let's talk about those right people. 85% of organizations report significant people issues, and that's why I chose to focus on people today. The leadership teams that I help the most immediately recognize we've got a people problem. And then the hard part is figuring out what to do about it. But let's first figure out how easily to identify what the issue is. The tool EOS recommends for this is something called the People Analyzer. It is incredibly simple and incredibly effective. Again, it's a free tool. I'll show you how to get to all those free tools at the end, but just follow me on this. So one of the first things on the VTO that I showed you earlier was core values. A lot of organizations have their core values established. For teams that I work with who haven't, we go through a discovery exercise and figure out, okay, what are the core values? But these are EOS worldwide. So it's humbly confident, grow or die, help first, do the right thing, and do what you say. So you put your core values at the top. Maybe you have 3, maybe you have 5. We really recommend no more than 7. But again, less is more. Keep it simple. If you have 12 core values, they're probably not really core. So just think about the biggest picture items. They go on the top. So then you can plug some employees in along the side here. And here we have Joanne, and again, we're keeping it very simple. We use a plus or minus scale. A plus in the category means they exhibit that core value most of the time. A minus means they hardly ever display that core value. And then we do a plus minus, which means sometimes yes, sometimes no. Again, we're not, this isn't rocket science. This is just a quick assessment tool. So Joanne's getting a plus. Where Martin's getting a minus, and Ellen's getting a plus or minus. And then you fill it out the rest of the way. Okay, so obviously Joanne is our rock star. Martin's kind of in the middle, and we've really got some problems with Ellen here because she's, really struggling. Actually, I'm looking at Martin. He's all minuses and no pluses, so he's not doing so great either. We got some people problems, and this is how simple it is you look at your core values. Do you want to work with people who display and embrace and embody those values on a daily basis? The answer is yes. Okay, so let's figure out how do we get there. EOS recommends what we call the bar, which means people are either operating above the bar or they're operating below the bar. So for 5 core values, we recommend a bar of 3 pluses, 2 plus minuses, no minuses. So I know I've got some coaching to do if I'm in charge of the team of Joanne, Martin, and Ellen. I'm going to let Joanne soar and do her thing, but I have to decide where to even start with these employees. And there's another way that's going to help me figure this out. We're going to go into that in a second. So that's right people. Right people are the people who fit your core values like a glove. You love working with them. They get it. Right seats. So how do we figure out who those right seats are? Well, we add another little layer, what we call GWC. G is the gets it. W means they want it. And C means they have the capacity to do it. So let's dive into that a little bit further. Gets it is the aptitude, the natural ability. I mean, we all say they don't get it. They do get it. I mean, if someone gets it. So it's that intuitive feel. Do they know how the job works? Do they know how to do it? Do they get it? Wants it. Do they spring out of bed to excel at the role? So the example I like to use is when I first started my company, I had to do my own books. It was a one-woman show, and I'm not good at it. And not only am I not good at it, I don't like it. Now, I got better at it. I got competent. I gained some competency. But if you were paying me $1 million a year, I wouldn't be springing out of bed in the morning to go work in QuickBooks. Not my thing. So you really can't pay or coach someone into wanting it. And when they want it, it means they have to want to do all 5 of the roles of the job. They can't want 4 and not want the 5th. Okay, they have to want the whole functionality. Okay, capacity to do it. So capacity can be an acquired ability, a skill, an experience. If you work as a algebra teacher, clearly you have to have the skill to be very good at math. Sometimes it's training that requires it. Sometimes it's an actual ability that it's just repeated like reps to be able to be good at something. But capacity can also be something very critical, time. So when I mentioned earlier that you might have someone in your leadership team doing 3 functions to keep the boat afloat, the question is, do they have the time to do any of them well? Or are they spread too thin? So time is definitely one of the things we talk about when we talk about the GWC and capacity. So right seats, GWC, they get it, they want it, they have the capacity to do it. So if we go back to that marketing and sales role, LMA, marketing, those are the 5 things we talked. Oh, sorry, I'll go back real quick. Too many clicking. So then we say, here's the role. This is the person that is in this job. Do they get it? Do they want it? Do they have the capacity to do it? So you're looking at the function, the person who's in the box. We say, this is the marketing seat. They're in the box. Then we go back to the people analyzer. Okay, so same people analyzer, same measurements, but we add, do they get it? Do they want it? And do they have the capacity to do it? So back to Joanne, Martin, and Ellen. Joanne gets it, wants it, has the capacity to do it. Martin, he gets it, he wants it. Apparently, he lacks the skills or training or time even to have the capacity to do it. And maybe some of the things that you're seeing in the core values is one of the reasons that the capacity is lacking. Usually these things are linked. So then we have Ellen. She doesn't get it. She wants it, and she's got the capacity, but something's not clicking for her. When you can recognize these deficiencies, this is where you say, I know how to solve this problem. I know I can move someone into a different role. The bar for GWC is yes, yes, yes. So as you're thinking of these employees of yours and you're saying, do they get it? Do they want it? Do they have the capacity to do it? If part of you goes, well, so the answer is no. Simplify. It is 3 yeses or the person is a no for the role. So when we do that, when we create our boxes, this is an accountability chart. We do it for everyone in the organization. You start with the leadership team, so goes the leadership team, so goes the rest of your organization. And you literally go box by box. Do they get it? Do they want it? Do they have the capacity to do it? You people analyze everyone, and then you know where your people issues are. And once you know that, then you have two kinds of people issues. The first kind of people issue is right person, wrong seat. So again, that's the person that we talked about who fits your corporate culture like a glove. They love everything about working there. They exhibit those core values day in and day out, but they aren't doing a particularly good job. You like them a lot. But again, the goal is for them to excel in the role. So if it's the right person in the wrong seat and your organization is large enough, maybe you can find a seat for them to succeed in. Maybe if they switch roles, if they make a lateral move, you'll find where their unique ability is, and all of a sudden they will excel. Okay, so we encourage that in organizations. Like if you've got the right people, see what you can do to put them in the right seats. The other people issue is wrong person, right seat. So this is a bigger, stickier wicket. So wrong person means they don't embrace your core values. I'll repeat that again. Wrong people do not embrace your core values. They do. In the EOS example before in the people analyzer, it's Martin. Okay, he's got all these minuses. Now, maybe he's in the right seat. Maybe he's great at his job. Tough choice, right? You've got someone who's really delivering on the mandate of the job, but boy, they rub everybody the wrong way. And what I would suggest with the wrong person in the right seat is they are whittling away at your corporate culture in ways you didn't even know was happening. And this has happened to me personally. So I had a manager that I thought was amazing. She required no help from me. She was very self-sufficient. She got the job done. I was thrilled with her performance. And then I had one of her reports come to me and say, I really like working for your company. And to stay here, I need a different manager. And I was like, woof, because this person worked for me for a long time. She was one of my first hires. And I really valued, because she was a right person, right seat. She was great. And for this person to say to me, I can't stay working for you, even though I love my job, because my manager is making me miserable. So if you've got a wrong person in the right seat, I'm going to beg with you, I'm going to plead with you, find a way to get them out. They're a cancer inside your organization, even if you don't know it yet. So 100% strong in the people component is right people, right seats, and the answer is you have to have both. Okay, so an example before of the maybe you have a right person in the wrong seat. This happens in organizations all the time, where it's somebody you really like and they've gotten promoted, and maybe they've gotten promoted one level too high. Now you're like, oh, now they're not good at this job. What do you do? So again, for right people, wrong seat, we say try to make a lateral move, try to find something else in your organization. For wrong people, try to get them out of your organization. Okay, so we want to talk about getting results and how this happens. So right people, right seats, I want to give you a little recap of how this works. So we talked about this structure first, people second. That's where you build out your accountability chart. You are flushing out the roles in each major function. And then you decide what people go in the roles. And yes, in organizations, you already have people in those roles, but when you're putting them in there, that's when your people analyzing and saying, is this the right person for this seat? Okay. Second thing, we want you to define that role in a very simple way. Okay, this isn't a detailed job description. This is a 5 bullet points. What are the things that this person does to make this role click? People analyze. First, you do it for core values. The great also test to see if your core values really are your core values, and I'll just give this a suggestion. Take the top 2 people in your organization, and just, even if everyone in your organization is wonderful, pick someone that's less wonderful, someone that maybe you have a people issue with. It's in the back of your head already. You're like, oh, that person's a people issue. And then you plug them into a little people analyzer. And what you'll find is those top people are pluses across the board and they're yes, yes, yes. And what you'll find is that person who is that ringing in the back of your head, maybe I've got a people problem, you're going to do the people analyzer and you're going to go, you know what, I do. So it also can work the opposite way. So for me personally, when we implemented this system, I had a manager that was like, I spent a lot of time thinking about Katie. Is Katie right? Is Katie? And she occupied a lot of my mental space. When I did the people analyzer, Katie delivered on the core values and the get it, want it, and capacity to do it. And then I could stop thinking about Katie and thinking about other things I needed to be thinking about to make myself successful. So people analyze, you add the names, and then again, people analyze and do they get it? Do they want it? Do they have the capacity to do it? So the goal is to make one great people move per quarter. So this is a recommendation that all implementers make for teams that are out there using the EOS system. And what does one great people move mean? Well, it can be a tough conversation. So you've got somebody who's not above the bar. I recommend literally having the tough conversation with the people analyzer right there and saying, these are our expectations. This is where we think you fall. And we need to see some improvement. You know, we need to see better morale. We need to see more productivity, whatever it may be. But you can have a tough conversation. And maybe that's enough to move the needle with that person. And that's a great people move. Maybe it's promotion. You see somebody who's a bright, shining star, and you got somebody that retires, and you can move them into that role. And you know they're going to be fantastic. So promotion's the easy one, right? It's like, hey, look at this. One great people move. Here you go. Here's a promotion. Maybe it's that lateral move that we talked about, where you see somebody who's the right person, wrong seat. You find somewhere else in the organization that you think they'll be successful. But what's important when you make that move is that the person understands that the move is being made because they're in the wrong seat. That they are a right person. You love working with them. They display your core values, but they're in the wrong seat. They're not excelling in the role. And they need to understand that, so that when you move them, they either, light it on fire and they're doing fantastic, or if they don't excel in that role either, then they already know, hey, I got moved from here to here, and apparently I'm being told I'm also not excelling here. So it makes having tough conversations easier. I will tell you that I'm dealing with a leadership team right now. They've moved somebody into 4 different seats. They can keep doing that. That's definitely their choice. It's not for me to tell them not to, but depending on how large your organization is, eventually you run out of seats. So if you have somebody who's the right person, wrong seat, and they're in the wrong 4 seats, then maybe you've got a different problem. And then honestly, one great people move per quarter could be for you to part ways. And we all know that's the hardest thing. There is nobody that likes to fire people, but it's what's best for the company in some of these instances. If they are a wrong person, they do not embrace your core values, they make it difficult working with other people in the organization, they make people not want to come to work or work for you, then that's the time to have a tough conversation and find a way to part ways. So I like this image. It's like everybody, yah team. I'm going to talk to you for a little bit about resources that are available on the EOS Worldwide website. So the basic website is eosworldwide.com. And there you can find a couple of things. You can find the Traction library. So Traction is the very first book that Gina wrote. There's now a whole series of these. One, Get a Grip is the next one. It's like a fable about how an organization implements Traction. And there's some that are employee focused. There's some that are visionary focused, which is like your person running your organization. So the Traction library can be found there. There's also great and free downloadable tools and videos. So EOS has a bin of tools in the toolbox, about 20 tools, and some of them we outsource for free, and I encourage you to check that out. So that is at the free tools. The quick link for that is eosworldwide.com/EOS tools. So that's the quick link for that. And then there's implementers. There's people at what I do that help leadership teams get where they're trying to go. And they feel like it would help them progress in such a way. And there's actually a resources page for that on the website as well. So you can look for implementers in your area or implementers that have a specialty, etc. So I like to say, let's get real, let's keep it simple, and let's get some results. And that is the end. Do we have any questions?
That's fantastic stuff. If there are any questions for Shannon, especially as I think about schools and those of you who are heads of school, about implementation, when you think about this, it's a fantastic concept, especially, when you think about people wanting to have a great work-life balance and wanting to really feel like they're getting the most out of the work they do. I guess the question I would have for Shannon, I'll start off with a quick question. When you think about kind of the way schools are set up, kind of with the kind of the principal model, what do you think the first thing that a principal at a school should be thinking about in terms of their structure?
So for a couple of things, I wouldn't think that I would think that you would want to go through the core values exercise again, because sometimes schools have had the same core values for 30 years, and maybe the times have changed, and maybe the people that work for you have changed, and you want the core values to be something that everyone identifies with. We actually give tips in the traction book about how to bring those to life in your organization. Like for instance, my organization, we have a core values Slack channel. So if someone's like doing something extra special, that's because one of ours is bring your A game. So if somebody really brings their A game, we give a shout out so that the whole organization knows what bringing your A game looks like. So it isn't just about saying these are core values, it's about providing those anecdotes, those examples, and sometimes it's the non-examples, like this is what not bringing your A game looks like. So just take a fresh look at your core values before you start measuring your people against them.
No, that's fantastic. Are there any other questions from the group at large? If you have one, please feel free to throw it in the chat. Otherwise, what I will tell you is that, from a resource standpoint, I've found that the folks with EOS are always there to help. So conversations are always a good thing to have, just to at least get an idea about what could be happening at your school and what opportunities you may have to build some growth in.
And the other thing that I would really suggest from a school perspective is part of the core values mission is we like to say you need to have a core value speech and you need to give it regularly so that you're developing this sense of community for people that feel like there's a belonging beyond maybe what just the mission of the school is, but there's a belonging for what the mission of being an employee at the school is. So like maybe there's a mission that you're trying to educate girls who live, my daughter's school is Live Justly. I'll not remember the episode of it right now, but so yes, that's what the mission of the school is to the outside world, but what are the core values if you're going to work here? Like, what do you need to bring on a daily basis? And then, the people analyzer, it makes the review process so much simpler. So yes, you might have a formal review process with KPIs abounding at the end of the year. But if you need to have a tough conversation, you can start with that people analyzer and it makes the conversations go so much more smoothly.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
Yeah. And I encourage everyone to put the screen back up if you want to see the websites again. So I just encourage everybody to visit the website again. Tons of free tools. You can get your feet wet. You don't need to read the book. I mean, I read the book. I fell in love with it. I couldn't put it down. But you don't need to read the book to be able to benefit from the tools. You just need to understand the concepts. And then when you do this with your leadership team, this definitely starts with the leadership team. This isn't something that immediately goes out to everybody. You get the leadership team in a room, making sure you guys are on the same page. You want a united front. Okay. Well, Jesse, I think that's it.
All right. Well, with that in mind, I will thank everyone for their time at this session. Thank Shannon for her time, obviously, her time and expertise. Really great information, and I think a really great way for schools to be thinking about the way that they move things forward and to lead at the top and to lead with vision, which I think is so important. So thanks again for that. If you have any questions for Shannon you want to take offline, please feel free to reach out to her at the information she listed below. We'll also make sure that contact info for her is available at the Unbound 360 booth. So please feel free to stop by and say hello. But otherwise, I want to thank everyone again for their time and attendance. This has been fantastic, and thanks again. And we will catch up with you again soon. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Have a great evening.